Thank you very much, Jagdish ji. Thank you very much for joining us and sparing your time. Naveen, really thank you very much for getting this all organized with Uma as well. And I hope she's already joined from another phone.
Yep, she did.
Lovely, lovely. So just a word about the series. This started during the lockdown when I was doing work for DakshinaChitra, and we were looking at how do we engage with people who are interested in museums and art when they can't visit DakshinaChitra. And for those of you who joined for the first time, DakshinaChitra is a large space just outside Chennai on the East Coast Road on the beachfront. And it was a vision of Deborah Tyagarajan and others to look at how do we recreate the village life of South India in Chennai. So a very committed group of people aided by the government, they were able to take homes that were representative of a caste or a community or a profession from different parts of the 4 southern states. In those days, 4, now 5. And they were able to reconstruct them back into the campus. So at one end, you have a museum, literally a museum, which is recording in progress. You have museums, a museum which is a set of buildings of some of the most important architectural styles in South India. But at a deeper level, you also get a very fascinating insight into daily village life in the past and in a way in the present as well. So you have craftsmen, you have beautiful objects of art, you have food, you have dance and music, etc. So the whole village life is recreated there. Those of you who have a chance to visit Chennai, I would strongly recommend you come and spend half a day or a day at DakshinaChitra. We're open now, and while we've opened back, we didn't want to stop the series because this becomes a great way for us to have a peek at museums that we may not normally be able to attend because they're in different parts of India. So I'm truly happy that Jagdish ji has agreed to do this. I'll give a short introduction about his illustrious career, though most of the session today will be handled by Naveen, who's the CEO of the Jagdish and Kamla Mittal Museum. So thank you, Naveen, for doing this and taking the effort of putting a few of your finest items or objects of the art into the PPT that we're going to see in a minute. So a couple of words about the Jagdish ji. Jagdish Mittal is an artist turned collector and art historian, and he is widely acknowledged to be the foremost authority on Indian painting. He is the principal trustee of the Jagdish and Kamla Mittal Museum of Indian Art in Hyderabad, to which he and his wife gifted their unique art collection in 1976. He was awarded the Padma Shri by the Government of India in 1990 in recognition of his excellent services to the field of art. His research articles have been widely published in prestigious publications in Indian art in India and abroad. He has co-authored with John Saylor several museum catalogs. Something that's particularly noteworthy about Jagdish ji is before the lockdown, he had, through the museum, organized a seminar every year to highlight not just their collection, but similar objects of art from other parts of South India. So, for example, and we'll see some of these today, they have a fabulous collection of Deccan metal objects. So he had different speakers speak about metal objects from Kerala, from Tamil Nadu, from other parts, non-Deccan parts of South India. So it's done very remarkable work like this. The presentation today is going to be handled by Naveen ji. Naveen Beesa is the CEO of the Jagdish and Kamla Mittal Museum of Indian Art in Hyderabad. He holds a postgrad diploma in Asian art from SOAS in London and is currently pursuing his master's in museum studies from the Amsterdam University of Arts in Netherlands. He was an intern at the Museum van Loon in Amsterdam, where he researched the functioning of house museums and their day-to-day management. His master's thesis focuses on understanding the issues of inclusivity and diversity faced by private museums. Prior to joining the Jagdish and Kamla Mittal Museum in 2012, he worked in the investment banking sector for 5 years. So wonderful, Naveen, to have young people like you move from the investment banking sector to take care of a treasure house of art in Hyderabad. It's really wonderful that you've been able to put this together, and we're very eager to see the beautiful objects of art, and I will not take any more time from all of you. My request is all of you, please be on mute. Naveen ji will take questions at the end. And over to you, Naveen.
Hello, everyone. So we've planned the talk today where first my grandfather would give a brief introduction about how his collection journey started and how he went on to build this collection. So we would first hear from him and know about how he set up this museum. And then after that, I will start with the presentation, and I'll take you through the objects that I've put in the presentation for you today. Start.
Thanks, Pradeep ji. I think before I go into the details of the nature of the collection, I should tell about the source of inspiration for making the collection. In fact, I was always interested in doing painting and to be a painter. In 1945, when I saw a great work by Nandal Bose, who was principal of the Kala at Shantiniketan, I wrote to him a letter that I want to learn painting under you, and I was immediately admitted. So I started as a painter. In next year, that is 1946, Nandal Bose took his students to Banaras, where Rai Krishna, the doyen of Indian art, invited him and with his students, while he was showing paintings to Nandal Bose. When I saw a very different type of joy and a light in the eyes when Rai Krishnadas was holding one painting and next giving to Nandal Bose, I found the same feeling. I thought there is something very sublime in verse of art, and to get that sublime delight, I just walked on the way to get that delight. In 1949, when my course was finished, I came to Delhi, where one of the greatest exhibitions of Indian art ever held was being exhibited after its being showing in London as Arts of India and Pakistan. It was a very large exhibition. I stayed on with the director of the exhibition, Dr. V.S. Agrawala, great scholar. And daily I used to see, after finishing this, and immediately I was posted for some months to inspire and teach the teachers at Chamba, a great center of Pahari painting in Himachal Pradesh. There, not only the Bhuri Singh Museum, I found two families of painters who settled in Chamba in 1625. I started meeting them, and where I saw a large number of drawings, acquired some, which are still supposed to be among the finest. Coming back to Delhi, of course, I was married to Kamla Mittal, who was also studying painting at Shantiniketan, and we married in January 1951, and soon after came to Hyderabad to exhibit our works. And of course, this was the connection. So soon I found some of the old families, because the Hyderabad state was merged with Indian Union. I found the families selling paintings, bidri ware, and many things. So started collecting one or two with my humble monetary means. Slowly, this collection became bigger, and I was visited by many art scholars like Khandalawala, Moti Chandra, Rai Krishna, W.G. Archer, etc. And some of the greatest collectors of Indian art like Cary Welch, Howard Hodgkin, and great scholars, young scholars like Robert Skelton. So all these things inspired me to collect, and the way the collection was being appreciated, it gave me confidence. I went on adding things after thing. Fortunately, Kamla also developed a very different, same type of taste. So I had no difficulty in collecting, no hindrance from the wife's side. So I went on adding collection. When I was about 50 years old, I decided that the collection has become quite substantial and being appreciated. I thought it should be saved for the use of posterity, because while collecting, I also made research on each painting or any object. I thought it should be saved in its totality for the use of young scholars, artists, and art historians of India as well as outside. So I created a trust in March 1976, and this is named Jagdish and Kamla Mittal Museum of Indian Art. The collection doesn't have any restriction of any period, any region. We have paintings from all art objects from all parts of India. No question of a period or painting from all styles, whether classical or folk. I see beauty in both. So I think I gave same importance to a good Mughal painting and a folk painting, a classical bronze as well as a folk bronze, a folk textile as well as a classical textile of, I think I should give the lead to Mr. Naveen Gupta, who is now handling the collection. Mr. Naveen Gupta, please.
Thank you, Pradeep, and thank you, DakshinaChitra Tamil Nadu, for bringing out this wonderful series of online lectures, which is called the Tales from Museum. And to adding to what my grandfather has just mentioned, for the collection that he's built, we as a museum operate in a very different way, and we have a very different approach of reaching out and engaging with people. And right now, our museum operates from the house, and we don't have any art objects on display. So we allow visitors to come and see the objects only by appointment. And by doing so, this sets us apart from other museums, as we don't have the objects behind glass vitrines, or they're not hung on walls. So one gets to hold the object, feel it, and look at the object intimately and patiently, which is not like any other museums, and how the present museums function. And the best part to this is you get to hear tales straight from Mr. Mittal, who engrossingly tells us about how the objects they've come into the collection, starting from the material, its period and its technicalities. And then he sums up his stories by how the object finally got into the collection of the Jagdish and Kamla Mittal Museum. So and in this way, we feel that we kind of give the visitor a very personalized experience, and also it does not restrict the visitor from understanding about the objects just from what they see on wall text or on labels. So for the talk today, I have selected 25 objects from the collection, which are primarily from the Deccan region. And I did that so that sits well with the theme of our talk, which is treasures from the Deccan. So Mr. Mittal, when he started collecting, which is about around 7 decades ago, the Deccan region was not so well known among scholars or historians. So all that they knew was only about Mughal art, and Mughal was everything that they knew about. So and it so happened that sometimes when these scholars they came across some objects which looked a little bit in style, it resembled a lot like Mughal, and although it was from Deccan, which they kind of arrived at a later stage, they would still inaccurately label it as Mughal. So with the absence of scholars who did any work on Mughal during around the 40s or the 50s, this led to Mr. Mittal thinking, why don't I start learning about the Deccan? Why don't I know more about this region? And that led him to explore the Deccan region and the various arts and crafts that are produced in this region, and out of which most of them have also made a place in the collection. So I would start with the presentation now. So a little about the Deccan is the Deccan gets its name from Dakshina, which is one of the most fascinating regions of India. And the medieval Muslim historians also call it as the Deccan, which is the south. And then it was called Deccan because it applied to the region and the different aspects of the culture. And if you look at the way how the Muslim rule started in Deccan, it was around 1294 when Sultan Tughlaq relocated his capital from Delhi, and he moved to Devagiri, which was later on to be called Daulatabad in Maharashtra. And then this migration from Delhi to Maharashtra, significantly it increased the Muslim population in the area. And then, but the various, the years of oppressive policies did not work in the favor of the Hindus and Muslims living here. So then it caused the Hindu kingdoms to collapse, and the Tughlaq territory in the Deccan also declined dramatically by 1335. And then in 1336, two brothers founded the Vijayanagar dynasty at Hampi, which is in the south of Tungabhadra River. And then they extended the control all over to the south of India. And then the Deccan has also been, the Deccan also saw empires as the Yadavas, the Kakatiyas, and the Vijayanagaras, who controlled large areas in the Deccan area. And the disaffected Muslim rulers, they formed a new sultanate, and that was the Bahmani Sultanate, which was between 1347 and 1518. And then they had their capital at Gulbarga. And then this sultanate eventually extended its dominion completely, all across the Deccan, stretching from coast to coast. And then even this sultanate finally started breaking down into 5 independent states: the Ahmednagar, Bijapur, Berar, Bidar, and Golconda. And then these states fought amongst themselves. And then when the turning point for the Deccan history was when these Muslim states formed an alliance to defeat the Hindu kingdom in Vijayanagara at the Battle of Talikota. And out of this, after the battle, in about, the centers of Bijapur and Golconda had to finally move in to fill the vacuum on the south. And then the Adil Shahi dynasty of the Bijapur and the Qutub Shahi dynasty of the Golconda were formed. And then they also had to eventually give up their control of the region to the Mughals in 1636, when Shah Jahan imposed the deed of submission upon them. And with the Mughals trying to take over, the Deccan rulers felt the brunt of losing out on the money, and then the coffers drained out, and then the Mughals were getting stronger. And then they had a attack from one side on the Mughals, and on the other side it was the Marathas, which was led by Shivaji. And then finally Bijapur had to give up in 1686. And then for the Golconda region, it was surviving on the large wealth that it generated from the diamond mines. And then they were also compelled to give up their seat in 1687. And then in 1724, Golconda and Hyderabad both became the de facto Mughal capital of the Deccan. And if you're looking at the arts and crafts of the Deccan, we really don't know where the origin of Deccan painting has started. And especially if you look for anything before 1565, we really have no idea as how Deccan painting came into. But then if you look at the later part of the 16th century, there was painting that was appearing regularly. And then this led to a newfound cultivation of art and music, which came out of the constant wars that was happening in between the Muslims and the Hindu rulers. And then in the Deccan, if you also look at the painting workshops, they've always been very small, and then they were anything between. There were not more than 10 artists working at one time in any of the courts, and then there used to be at least only between 2 and 4 in the provincial courts. So based on all this, the breadth and the depth of the museum's collection is the different varieties of Deccan painting and crafts, which we have collected from the different courts of Ahmednagar, Bijapur, and Golconda, and it's between the 16th and 17th centuries. So if starting with the first slide, we can see that these are the main centers on the map of the Deccan region. So on the north, starting from Burhanpur, and then going down to Aurangabad, and then and then Ahmednagar, and then Warangal. So these were the main centers of the Deccan rule. This is the first painting, one of the earliest paintings in the collection, which is 2 gamecock keepers of the Prince Hussain. And they are set in a Deccan landscape. And this is from the Ahmednagar region, dated about, it's about 1585-88. And on this one, if you have to look at, as cockfighting as a sport, it was not really, when people would display cockfighting as, it was not something that people would do for a crowd. But if you look at the painting here, and if you look at some of the details, you can see that, it's the people who are handling the gamecocks, that they're in no mood of letting them fight, and it looks more like they're trying to hold the roosters and not let them fight, and they're kind of subsiding them. And then if you also look at the faces of the gamekeepers, they have these little smile, and they have these bright-eyed, and they're looking at each other and trying to trying to pass on some kind of humorous gestures. This painting is from Bijapur, 1620, and this is about this is the yogini who's worshipping at a Shiva shrine, in front of a Shiva shrine. So if you notice, the yogini is standing in a still position on one leg, and then the other one is wrapped around the trident, and she's paying her respects to the deity. And then although she's holding on to the thin trident, she's completely in the trance of paying her respects. And then she's trying to show that she's completely in the service of the god. And then if you look at the attire that she's worn, it's a chakdar jama, and she's also wearing a striped pajama, which indicate towards this being a Mughal style clothing, because by this time, which is about 1600, the Mughals had already reached the Deccan, and they were stationed at Ahmednagar. This one is one of our museum's most famous painting. And it is a parrot and a tethered ram. So when we look at this painting, we at first we don't understand, as you know, what is the proportion of the parrot, and what is the proportion of the ram, and what is the parrot doing on the tree, on a fully on a mango tree that is in that has full ripe mangoes. And then there's a ram which is below the tree, and it's as if it doesn't care what the bird is doing. And then at this painting, it kind of gives us a sense of how the artist has tried to depict this creative. He's created a fantasy in his head, and he's tried to bring about this surrealistic nature of a painting. And then when you look at the colossal parrot, and then it's just looming over the ram. And I mean, who could have imagined that something like this could come into an artist's mind? And then the scale. I mean, if you also look at the scale, the ram is much smaller and the parrot is much bigger. And then in other sense, you actually don't see any reason, or there's no connection between the theme and the disproportionate creatures in the tree. But then that's the idea of the artist trying to give you that you can think about the most unusual things and then just put it down on paper. And this painting, I should say that I'd like to mention that this painting really enjoyed enjoyed a high-profile position during the exhibition held at the Metropolitan 2015, the Sultans of the Deccan. And this was used as the main marketing image, if I may say. And it was everywhere in New York, right on exhibition posters to the bus advertisements and on the brochures and handouts. So that was kind of a proud moment for us, seeing our parrot and the ram everywhere in New York. This painting is a pretty large painting, and this is about 75 centimeters by 107 centimeters. And this painting captures the whole scene of a Zanana returning from hawking, and how energetic the whole scene is. So this painting has been done on cloth, and for a painting of this size on cloth and trying to capture so many events in just one painting, we don't think that there's any other Deccan painting that can rival the size and the quality of this painting. And the main characters in this painting are is Salabat Jung, who was a very small leader, but who rose to power with the help of the French, and he ruled Hyderabad until 1762. And in this painting, Salabat Jung is shown in full honor, and he's mounted on the most elegant-looking royal elephant, which is equally decked, and it has sumptuous gold fabrics, and it has an elaborate canopied ambari, which is sitting, which is a howdah where the rulers are accommodated. And then at the center, if you move to the center of the painting, you see a queen, which is a queen who is shown in a larger size, and who is seated on a massive horse, and she's headed towards in the direction of the king. And then you can see that in a way, if you try to break down the painting, it's kind of divided into two panels, where in the top panel you see the king who's seated on an elephant and who's wanting to come and meet the queen, and on the other panel you see the queen running towards the king, and she too is given the same honor, and she also you can see that she also has her own ceremonial fan and the parasol. And then one eye-catching detail in this painting is the women are shown bearing falcons. And then you also, I mean, the details are so, I mean, the painting is done with so many details that the falcons are also shown with dead prey in hand. So that kind of helps us, emphasize how important this whole expedition is, and the role of the ladies in this whole expedition. And these are the details that I was mentioning about in the painting. This painting is a very unusual painting, and it comes from one of the little samasthans of the Deccan region, and it's from Vanapati, which is in Telangana. And this painting depicts how a lady is set in how a lady is set alone in the center of this whole painting, and then you can see the flowers, the flora in full bloom around her. And if you try and break down the painting to understand it better, you see in every register, like you have a full blooming flowers in the top register, and then you have the sky, and then you have the gardens in the foreground. And then one of the important things about this painting is at the verse at the top, they mention about Parijata and jasmine flowers. And according to Indian mythology, both these flowers have got are quite significant, because the Parijata is associated with wish fulfillment, and the jasmine flowers are cherished for their fragrance, and they're quite often used in the rites of worship. And if you look at the lower register, you have marigold again, which is a very which is a very common flower that is grown in the Deccan region, and I mean it's grown in abundance in the Deccan. This painting is by one of the famous artists of the Deccan, whose name is Venkat, and he tries to capture a prince who's seated who's seated with her pet pigeons, and she's seated on a terrace. And when your focus goes to the princess, you might find her to be like sitting like in a very gloomy mood and in a very sad mood. But then the things around her do not suggest that. I mean, her skirt is. There's a flaring skirt that she's putting on, and then she's quite well ornamented, and then the chairs, you can kind of see a movement in the chairs. So all this kind of helps us to understand that she's probably waiting for her loved one, and then she's just cannot wait quite much longer. And then the artist tries to also show the presence of this mood with trying to give the background in a cool white background, and then he has everything put in a very orderly fashion. And then you have these Chinese style bottles, and then you have the cups, and then you have the low table. So it's like, as if she's waiting for somebody, and she just can't wait any longer. And a little about the artist is he is known, Venkachalam was known to work in the style of drawing influence from the Western perspectives, where he would try and look at some of the European works, and then he would try to implement that in his work. And then he was also one of the favorite, he was the favorite artist of the court of Nizam Ali Khan, who was the ruler who ruled Hyderabad from 1762 to 1803. And then similar adaptations of this subject, you can find them in some other museums as well. For example, you have it in you can see an example in the National Museum, in the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Museum in Bombay, and a few in private collections. Now, coming to this painting, I must say that this is one of the most rarest schools that you can find from the Deccan. And I should say that I should also mention that Mr. Mittal has spent almost 60 years trying to research the school, and he's the only person who's been able to identify the school. And this is from the Tirupati. This is a Tirupati style of painting, and this painting depicts Krishna lifting the Mount Govardhan. And when you look at how the way the image is treated, it's very much according to the South Indian iconography, where you see some of these styles in the Vijayanagar period paintings. And then when you look at the form of the deity who's shown in the painting, it kind of reminds us of some of this 16th, 17th century sculptures from Karnataka. And then if from the artist's point of view, these deities are portrayed in the form where these images have been shown on the Venkateshwara temple in Tirumala. And that kind of confirms to the style being made at Tirumala. And the next painting, which is also from Tirupati, is Krishna playing with butter balls. If you can look in the hands, he's holding two butter balls, and we all know about Krishna's love for butter. And that is also very well executed by the artist, and he shows Krishna in a very jovial and in a very playful mood. And you can see that on the way the expression on Krishna's face is, that he's so happy to have the butter in his hands. Just to add also here is our museum is going to come out with a publication on the Tirupati school soon. And as I said, like Mr. Mittal's lifelong work on identifying the school is going to be put up in that book. Now, the style of painting, I have just taken a detail of the whole painting, because usually these paintings are about 2.5 to 3 feet wide, and they're about 30 to 40 feet long. So this is a detail of a scroll painting, and this depicts the Markandeya and the Bhavana Rishi legend on this in the form of a painting. So a little about the scroll painting is, as scroll painting has always been one of the one of the ancient forms of pictorial expression in India. And then apart from Telangana, we get to hear about scroll paintings from Rajasthan, from Gujarat, from Madhya Pradesh, and Bengal, Orissa, and Bihar. But the kind of the quality of work that is shown in the Telangana scrolls, we've never come across anything as fine and as detailed as these. And these we call them the Telangana scroll paintings, and then they kind of draw a lot of influence from other Deccani types of painted scrolls. And the main purpose of these scroll paintings was because this was used by picture showmen, and they kind of drew influences from other Pattachitras, or other scroll paintings. And then the reason why these scroll paintings were produced is that they were made for people. They were made to narrate stories of different castes in Telangana, and it would always be that a person from one caste was only allowed to talk about or tell the legend of another caste. For example, the painting that we are seeing here, this is from the Markandeya and Bhavana Rishi legend, which talks about the story of the weavers. I mean, how the weavers caste came into existence. And then this is for the Padmashali caste. And then this story is always narrated by people from the Kunapuli caste. And only they are allowed to tell this story. And they are only allowed to get the authority to tell the story from the Padmashali caste. And the first panel that we see, it's like the introductory panel of the scroll painting, where Ganesha is shown, and that is as we know that Ganesha is always worshipped before you start a work, or you start on something. So Ganesha is shown as the first god that you pay your respects to. And then this is also a detail from the same scroll, and this shows Vishnu lying on the Vishnu lying on the Seshasai. And if you can look at the center on towards the top, you see that there's a white thread, which, I mean, a white string-like thing that goes on towards the right, and then it's held by a person. So the story on this says that according to the legend, Rishi Markandeya was asked by the gods to weave cloth. And then for this, he went into, he did a great penance. And then from his sacrificial fire, the image of Bhavna Rishi, which is the next image, this image. So this one, seated on a tiger, he rose from the penance, from the sacrificial fire, and then he fought against the demons who were trying to stop the Bhavna Rishi, and who was trying to stop Markandeya from going on with this penance. So he fights. I mean, he gets into a war with them, and then he's successful, and then he goes and he takes his blessings from Shiva, and then he meets all the other gods like Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu. And then Vishnu, they say that the fibers for the cloth came out from the lotus, which sprang from Vishnu's navel. So that is this image. So I kind of I tried to cover the paintings of the Deccan in the first, so far, and now I'm going to move on to the metalware. And starting with the metalware, the first image is of a Devi, which is of the Chalukyan period, and it is from the Deccan region, and it's the 10th. It's from the 10th century. This image is of Krishna, which is from a very rare center, and it is from Guntur in Andhra Pradesh. So not many figures like these, you come across figures like these from an area like Guntur. This unusual box is, it was used for safekeeping of ornaments or coins or anything that was used in rituals. And this dome casket, it has the figures of Devi on the four sides, and this is in the Nolamba style, which Nolamba was a very small dynasty from Karnataka, and this is from the 10th century. This is from the 9th century. This is again a coin box, and this is from the Bahmani period, and so that should be about the 13th or the 14th century, and this is from the Deccan region. This is a very important object from our collection, and this also is a coin box, and this has been suggested that this could probably be from a very lesser known center, which is the Warangal area in Telangana. And the recent studies have suggested that Kakatiyas had their influence on the way how the sultans the sultans were patronizing the arts and crafts in the Deccan. And this box gets its very unusual shape, and it gets the design, and it gets its spiral-like design from the monuments in the Kakatiya period, and especially like the 1,000-pillar temple in the Warangal or the Warangal fort. So you see similar kind of designs even in these two monuments. And then if you look onto the sides, there are like these, these latches, and the function of this box was also to store something very precious. And when we opened up the box, we found an inscription inside, and that read Salapudi Ranga Fani Yabhai, which means that the value of the contents of this container is 50. So this was also exhibited at the Metropolitan Museum's exhibition, The Sultans of the Deccan, in 2015. And this is how the box opens up. Now, this when we look at this, I mean, it looks like a empty jug, or like a flask, like we call this. But when you actually look at the functionality of this object, this is a water flask. And the spouts that you see that are extended onto the sides, those are also empty chambers. So when somebody, when it is filled with water, the water first goes through the neck into the top section of the bottle, and then that filters down into the spouts on the side, and then it accumulates at the bottom. So this you can probably say is one of I mean, it's a very ingeniously shaped water jug, and you can look at the exceptional craftsmanship of how this is made. And this is also from the Bahmani period, and it is from the 13th, 14th century. And the image on the right is what I stumbled upon in the National Museum in Kandy in Sri Lanka. So that also, if you look at the shape, it is quite an unusual shape for a water container. And, this is an ewer, and this is also used for holding water. And I mean, if you look at the shape, this the motifs on the stomach of the ewer, I mean, these kind of motifs you see in most of the Deccani monuments. I mean, this kind of decoration that is used in I mean, you can see them on the monuments. And if you look at if you look at where these could have been produced, recently there was a horde of excavated objects that were found, and these were found in a very small place close to Bijapur called Kollur. And most of these objects are now in the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Museum in Bombay. This piece is also one of our most famous pieces, and this has been to some of the most important exhibitions that were done in UK and in US. And this is a circular tray, and it is engraved, and it is made of copper, and it has a very beautiful floral arabesques, and it has animals and birds depicted. It has the mythical birds, the simurgh, and then you can see that all of this is done by engraving. And then if you look at the outer band, it has a running floral arabesque, and then in the center you have a hamsa, or the goose, which is very Deccani in nature. So it's a very Deccani motif of a hamsa. And these are the details. I mean, if you look at the image onto your left, you can see deers, you can see lions, you can see peacocks, ducks, and I mean, there's so much of activity going on in this whole in this small place here. Now, coming to more metalwork from the Deccan, we now are looking at a Bidri piece, and this is from Bidar, as the name suggests. And this hookah was this hookah has this hookah has been dated, and it has an inscription at the bottom. And the inscription says that it is done by Nazaf Kuli, who's a son of Nan, and the work was completed in 1634-35. And a little about what Bidri is. It is a very unique type of an Indian metalware, and it gets its name from Bidar, which is in Karnataka. And that once used to be the capital of the Bahmani and the Badshahi sultanates. And then Bidar was seized by the Adil Shahis in 1690s, and then later on it got annexed by the Mughals in 1656. And then after the Mughals annexed it, it finally came under the control of the Asaf Jahis who ruled between 1724 and 1949. So as it technically, Bidri is it's bringing together different kinds of metal alloys, where a majority of the metal alloy is zinc, which makes up to about 85 or 90%, and then about 5 to 10% is copper, and then 1 to 2% is lead or tin. And the way the technique of the technique of the Bidri work is the ornamentation can be categorized under 5 different types. So what we are seeing here is a combination of 2 types of ornamentation. So that is the tarakasi. I mean, it is a technique where only the wire is used as an inlay, and then it also has a technique called the tehnishan, where the inlay is flush, but then it is flush with the surface of the object. And if you can have a combination of these 2 techniques. And then there is another technique called the mahatabi or the aftabi. And then in these 2 designs, you get to see one part of the alloy as it looks against the overlaid alloy. So the design looks black against the overlaid alloy. And the last is the technique is called Zarnesha, which is when the pieces are inlaid and they are put in they're inlaid in a very low relief, and then Zarbuland when the pieces are in high relief. This is an interesting Bidri as well, which shows a royal procession. And then if you look from the top, starting at the neck, you see they tried to put in animals and people, and then at the lower ring you see a complete line of animals again, and then in the middle in the middle band you see a person seated on an elephant, and then it probably suggests it to be somebody very important. And this is also from the Deccan region, and about 1800. Another very famous craft form of the Deccan is the filigree. And here we see this silver filigree pandan and a tray. And filigree was done, I mean, pandans were quite commonly used in the Deccan, because the use of pan was quite was prominent in this area. And I mean, it was very common. So you could find anybody with a pandan, and they could just hold it in their hand and eat pan out of it. So it was that common, because it was a fashion to have pan in the Deccan. And this kind of filigree is again done in a very intricate and a very delicate form. And this is done by a backed wire work. It is a completely wire work, and then it's done either in silver or gold, or sometimes even both are used. And then even in filigree, you have 2 different types of filigree. There's one which is the open work, where heavier gauge wires are used, and then they are used against, they're used along with thinner gauge wires, and they're kind of the kind of design around the heavier frame. And then in the second type, you have a wire work, which is done on a sheet as a stencil, and then it is soldered onto a metal ground. And even in filigree, the open filigree work is known as the tarakasi work. Yeah, as I was just saying that the fashion of eating pan was, it was quite common in the Deccan. This is a beetle nut cutter, and this is from the Deccan region, and it's from probably from Maharashtra. And here you can see that a tiger is, mauling a deer, and that has been put onto a beetle nut cutter with very intricate designs, and the way the handles are done. So this again, it again goes back to the point that the fashion of eating pan was so much that even things like beetle nut cutters were done with so much care, and they were so highly decorated. This is it's a group of silver toys, and these are toy soldiers, and they're seated on a. There's one who's seated on a camel, and he also has a cannon. And then there's one seated on a horse with a sword, and then there's just a soldier with a sword in his hand. So these were the kind of objects that you would find in people's palaces, or they could have used it for some kind of a game, or maybe when they strategize about things. And this is from again from a very lesser known region, the Visakhapatnam region in Andhra Pradesh, and this is about 1800. Now we come to the ritual boxes, and this is also from the Andhra Pradesh region. And these boxes are very finely decorated boxes made out of copper or of bronze. And these mostly had figures of deities, and it was mostly Vaishnavite. And the function of these boxes were, I'm sorry, I don't have an image that shows on the top, but it has slots on the top of the image where this was used in temples, and they could put very tiny or very small things as storage. I mean, this was used as a storage container. This is a Kalam Kari, which is again a very famous which is a famous object from the Deccan region, and we all know about Kalam Karis, and Machilipatnam was a center for Kalam Karis. So this Kalam Kari has got figures of, has got women in circular motifs, and this was used as a pichwai, and this was used as a backdrop in a temple. And this was made in Machilipatnam, but it was made for a temple in Hyderabad. So this kind of a work is done gold tinsel, and then it's a very fine work which combines both dyeing and painting it with hand. I guess this is the last slide, and this is a border of a pichwai, and the image at the bottom is the full image, and that's about 7 feet long, and it's about 1.5 feet wide. And the image on the top is the details. And if you look at how intricately they've used gold, and then how finely it has been done, and if you look at the floral arabesque, you can also see parrots on them. And this was the kind of work that was done for a very important person. And I mean, in this case, it was done for a temple. So so I guess I'm sorry. I think this is the last of the slideshow.
Fantastic, Naveen. Really, thank you very much for taking us through all of this. It was really a feast for our eyes. I remember, every image was beautiful in its own way, but loved seeing the frogs and the tadpoles. No, I think you should keep the pictures on for some time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you should keep them on. I think seeing the frogs and the tadpoles in that reclining Vishnu, that textile painting was my favorite. I'm going to throw the floor open for questions now, if any. And people can unmute themselves and ask the question. Does Jagdish ji want to speak a little bit more about the Tirupati school paintings, Naveen? Would you be interested?
Yeah.
You can put them up, especially the Krishna with the dancing Krishna with the buttballs. he wants to talk a little bit about it. Sorry, Naveen, just before that, there's an operational stuff that I need to do.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Bull.
Tirupati is a well-known pilgrimage center, but as you know, South India was known for murals or Kalam Karis, but there are very, very few examples of painting of small size. And this belongs to a very rare group of Dasavatar paintings on cloth. They are vibrant, and especially the expression of the deity as if staring into your eyes and blessing you. And more importantly, the rhythm created by the artist on the space, and the whole body is painted with lapis lazuli, which is a color never used in South India. There are only a few paintings. Perhaps this was inspired by the Mahants at Tirupati to paint for the devotees and to carry. So apart from the Lord Venkateshwara playing dice with the Mahant, Hathi Ramji, there is a painting in the series. The museum has these double-sided 9 paintings, that is 18. Only a few other paintings of this style are known, but this is the earliest. So recently we have published about this style in our museum publication, recent studies in Indian painting in a seminar, and I have written this whole article with about 20 illustrations. You are welcome to see that. Briefly, I can say they are most vibrant of South Indian paintings.
Lovely. Thank you, sir. Naveen, is there any metal object that Jagdish ji would like to talk a little bit about? Something that he is very fond of?
Yeah, just let me ask you. Yes, Pradeep.
Yes, I like to say about this thing. This plate, silver, originally it was gold plated. And after constant use, I think the gilding has gone. But the main charm lies in the beautiful ground and animals, birds, both Indian and Persian. Actually, the whole background, the figures have come into relief by engraving the background. And most importantly, the center has the triple Hamsa motif used in southern India for Hindus, but the plate is made for some Qutub Shahi king with the Tugras around written in Naksh script. But the whole, about 2 feet size in diameter, this plate is, I think, among the best of Indian Islamic metalware. That's why it has been appreciated again and again, published in several books, and exhibited in several prestigious exhibitions.
Right. Naveen, if you can just ask Jagdish ji, the paintings that you showed, they would have been folios that the kings would have admired, no? Not really paintings that they might have been framed and hung on the wall like we do today.
No, yeah, I'll just ask.
Yeah.
The Indian miniatures, when you say they were of small size, the whole idea of displaying on the wall is a new things. They were kept in portfolios, and when with 8 or 9 some friends, they were taken out, shown to each other, pass one to the second person, third person, and there used to be discussion. Actually, the moment you display the painting, they get a different view. Actually, when they are being held, they are meant to be held, you enter the painting. But when they are on the wall, it creates a different perspective that they should not be displayed for a long time because all colors are not lasting forever. But you see, if they are displayed as in many museums for 4 or 5 years, you will find some of the colors have faded. It should never be done.
I think somebody has a question. Saurabh, if you can unmute yourself and ask Saurabh. And Naveen
Yes,
will.
sir.
Yes, go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. Good evening, sir. It's a great privilege and honor listening to you and seeing you over screen. So I had a very small query about the Tirupati painting that we just saw of the dancing Krishna. Now, I think that was, if I'm not mistaken, it is dated somewhere around the 1700s CE. And but there's a very peculiar thing on the right-hand side on the top of the painting. The inscription is in Hindi. I think it is written as Bal Mukund or something like that. So I'm a bit intrigued as to a temple painting belonging to Tirupati and so old, and it contains a Devanagari Hindi inscription. I just wanted to know more about it, sir.
As I told, these paintings were perhaps created via the Mahants of Fateh Ramji, who was devotees. These paintings were found in Jaipur. Perhaps when they went there, someone in North Indian devotee noted the titles in Devanagari script.
Oh, so that explains it, sir. Yeah. Right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So it looks like there aren't any other questions, but they have a website, and I'm sure we can reach out to Naveen. And I don't know, the lockdown and all the health risks have made it difficult for many people to meet Jagdishji, including me. It's been pending for, I think, 2 years now. Yeah. But it was really a pleasure to have Jagdishji speak and share his expert opinion on at least 2 items. Naveen, thank you very much. Is there one more that he wants to talk about, something that he'd like us to know a little bit more about? Or is he tired? Would he be willing to speak?
Well, he's not tired because this only lifts his spirits up, and he's more than energized, I would say.
Right. So if he wants to do one more, I think we'd be honored. If there's any other item in the collection that he'd want us to know a little bit more about.
Yeah,
yes, please. But in the meanwhile, we have a feedback form, and it'll be most helpful if you can fill it up. I think the link has been shared, and I think somebody from DakshinaChitra will send it across to you as well. But don't wait for that. If you can click on the link on the chat window and fill up the feedback form, it'll be most useful for us. Let's just wait for Jagdishji to check if he can speak to us about 1 or 2 more of the treasures that we've seen today.
The wall.
Yeah. Pradeep, he wants to talk about the round spherical box.
Yes, of course.
No, coin box.
Yes. You want to go to that, Naveen?
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry.
Yes. I'm talking about this thing. I think Indian craftsmen sometimes made objects which are most functional as well aesthetically inspiring. This wall designed with the spiral feeling as if it is rotating on something. Beautifully made, only made for a very practical use of storing coins or jewelry and then buried. Because the inscription inside says the content of this box is so many phanam. But the main thing is so beautiful and abstract, because abstraction is a quality of many art objects, especially very rarely the artist has achieved this sort of abstraction quality when the object rotates. You know, the well-known architect Doshi, when he came to Hyderabad in 1980, after seeing 20 or 30 objects, when I showed this to him, he told, it's enough. I know now the nature of the museum. I'll design the building. Sorry, it has not happened.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jagdish. Thank you very much. We will journey to Bihar and Patna next month for the next museum series. But Naveen, thank you so much for putting this together, and Bittu, Uma as well. You've been both really supportive of the great work that that Jagdish ji has done. Thank you very much for that, and our best wishes for all of you. It was really a treat for our eyes today to see the paintings, the textiles, and the metalware. And we hope that the museum will be open soon, its doors to the public, so that we can come and see these objects at leisure. Thank you very much. Namaskar, Jagdish ji. Namaskar.
Dada, namaste. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.